Welcome everyone to this episode of the Real Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Edwards. Joining us today, folks, is the founder and CEO of Eagle Protect. Please welcome Steve Ardagh. Steve, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Kevin. Pleasure.
So Eagle Protect, tell us a little bit about your impact journey and the origin of it.
Well, we've been going for 16 years now. Started in New Zealand in 2006. And Linda and I wanted to start a company that really just helped people engage in their lives. We see so many people not being able to go to work because they hate what they do or just can't be bothered, but we wanted to give them something. And we often say we could be selling baked beans. It doesn't really matter. It's the culture of the company that we've tried to develop that helps people be engaged and feel they're doing something reasonably worthwhile, even if it is selling gloves to people. So we do a number of things that we hope will make an impact on the planet and the people and also make us a profit.
And so tell me a little bit about the secret sauce that's baked into the culture. What's worked for you?
Well, we just have a really clear North Star, I guess. We say often that we're just our simple focus is to save the world one glove at a time. And that sounds a little bit crazy, but it really needs it. I mean, the business that we're in is not done well by most people. What's a good way of putting it without being too rude? People just generally sell boxes of gloves. What we're selling is protection and helping people use less of a much better product and keep safe.
So tell us a little bit about the unknown detriments that gloves have on society, on the environment. I was really taken away by a few of the studies that you had done on. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, as you know, I can talk for a long time about gloves, so tell me when to stop. But we have done over the last 4 or 5 years using a microbiologist, Barry Michaels, a number of studies on gloves, because one of the things that most people don't realise, or two things, is one, gloves aren't checked on arrival into the US, particularly food-grade gloves, or New Zealand for that matter, and gloves, FDA food compliance doesn't require gloves to be clean. And so people are assuming that the glove they take out of a box is clean and ready for use. So we've done studies on 2,800 gloves, 26 brands, and we found everything from Listeria, E. coli, Salmonella, name your pathogen, 250 different pathogens, some highly toxic, some not so bad, but still dirt. We found mold, fungus, and to cap it off, 69% of the gloves had indications of fecal matter. So that was pretty disturbing, and 46% of the gloves had indications of human fecal matter. So these are gloves that have been made in dirty factories. The water's probably not been filtered, or the filtration system's not working. So potentially you're introducing a toxin into your food or medical environment when you put the glove on.
And is this what you believe to be why many carcinogens and you name your pesticide show up in food?
Well, we had a study done with a now customer of ours. They had a recall because the authorities or the testing authorities found a thing called OPP on their glove, which is a carcinogen banned on the Californian Prop 65 list. And so they had a recall and they tested everything and traced it back to their glove. So the glove was contaminating the product. And we think these sort of things happen a lot, but no one quite knows where the E. coli comes from or the Salmonella comes from or the Listeria comes from. And the way the testing is now, the testing is getting so good that it'll pick it up much more than it may have even a few years ago when the FDA or whoever come in and do the testing. So, it's conjecture, we don't know for sure, but the hospital-acquired infections are a major cause of illness and death in all countries. And we wonder if these gloves are dirty, then potentially that's what's infecting patients. I mean, we don't know that, but that would be a reasonably good conclusion to make, I think. Yeah.
And so your differentiator in this case is your gloves are the only tested gloves, only clean gloves on the market?
Well, we're the only company that tests gloves on arrival into the US. So we've developed what we call Delta Zero. It's a 5-layered lot testing process. It has a number of different tests from GCMS, gas chromatography and mass spectrometry, through to raw material analysis and bioburden and all sorts of things. So we've developed this test. We test the lots as they come in, so we can say to our customers, this glove meets these very high standards. There may be other gloves on the market that are just as good. We don't know, but nobody tests for them. So, but we do know that a lot of gloves are contaminated with dirt and feces and goodness knows what else.
So, there's an interesting question asked, and this is why I'm going to try and hopefully make a transition to. The question here was, are you a mission with a product or a product with a mission? Based on your mission of clean quality products that you test upon arrival here in the United States, do you plan on diversifying your product line at all? And could you do that with your testing service?
We're very focused on disposable gloves because the US pre-pandemic, for example, used 228,000 gloves every minute, so 328 million a day.
Wow.
We think we've got quite a successful business, but in terms of a year, we supply 8 hours of the US needs. So there's a huge opportunity for us to grow. And the way we've set up our company is that we have a very clean supply chain. We audit the factories. Glove companies are renowned, unfortunately, for labour rights violations. The Customs and Border Patrol in the US have banned 6 companies from Malaysia and Southeast Asia in the last 2 years for labour rights violations. So we tell our customers and our investors and our staff, the more we can sell out this way, the cleaner the supply chain is going to be back into Malaysia, because we can use more and more factories and bring our standards to those factories. And then it's I guess the market is so big that we want to retain our focus rather than sort of be a bit broad brushed, retain our focus on gloves and a small line of clothing, PPE as well.
Very cool. One glove at a time.
One glove at a time, yeah.
And so if I'm your average day citizen, where am I actually seeing gloves used on me? I can think of at, sandwich stores. Yep. I can think of at maybe at my dentistry. I hear you bring your own gloves to your own dentist. Is that true?
Well, our dentist has now started buying our gloves, so I don't need to in the States, so that's good. But yeah, I'm not sure if this is good for public consumption, but when you're 40, which you won't know yet, sometimes you go to a doctor and get a reasonably personal examination as a man, which I won't go into detail. But so I took my own gloves and I explained to the doctor, this is in New Zealand, why I was, and he became a convert as well. So it's just that it's such a simple thing. If something is made properly, then there's no problem. These gloves aren't designed to be sterile. They're just designed to be used for handling food or people in a doctor's lab or a dentist or whatever. And so it's just important to us that these checks and balances are put into place.
And for just your average day consumers that are interacting with businesses like this, how can they be a part of the change?
Well, they could, there's a couple of fast food places I won't eat at because of the gloves they use. And I often say to people, the gloves are like the canary in a coal mine. If you see what gloves the business is using, you can imagine that if they're going cheap and nasty, then the food safety process probably follows the same guidelines. But we often say to people that every single person in America is touched by a disposable glove every day, either in the medical field or by the food you're eating. If you've eaten something today, someone's handled that with a glove. It's likely. So a sandwich, an apple, you name it. So I guess what we're trying to do is raise awareness. We've got the Journal of Food Protection is going to publish our work in the next couple of months, peer-reviewed, so that will bring attention to it. We can then talk to people with credible sort of evidence of what's been going on. And it's really just been aware. I mean, it's, nobody thinks about gloves, do they? It's just one of those things that isn't front of mind, but it's the last, we call it the thin blue line between the manufacturer and the eater of the food. It's that last sort of barrier, if you like. In
your discussions with investors, have they considered this to be, a high, medium, or low risk to the organizations that they're invested in?
Well, I mean, it's a foodborne illness outbreak, for example, to a fast food chain or a supermarket is disastrous in terms of credibility. Potential direct cost in terms of damages they have to pay people, and there's been many lawsuits over the years of people who have been sick from various food-borne illness outbreaks, and so that it should be a high risk. Unfortunately, sometimes I don't see it because it's one of those, it's sort of like house insurance. You don't worry about it until your house burns down, and then you're glad you've got it. This to us is like an insurance. For us, if I was a food producer or reseller, making sure that the products that were the gloves that were touching the product were clean would be paramount. And it's such a simple thing, but unfortunately it's almost in a blind zone for a lot of people because they just assume that the gloves are clean, which they're not.
And you've had quite the entrepreneurial journey, starting in New Zealand and then growing your 2 operations now. You've experienced a lot of ups and a lot of downs. What are maybe the largest takeaways, the largest lessons that you've learned from a leadership perspective throughout this journey?
I listened to Blair Callison yesterday, who you probably also had on the podcast, I imagine, ex-traditional botanicals, and he said the power of kindness in leadership, and I thought that was really incredible. We think we run a pretty good company in terms of giving our staff some freedom, some flexibility. We pay reasonably well. We sell disposable gloves, but at the end of the day, it's about the impact we're trying to make in the world that drives our staff and us to do what we do. So I guess the point being just looking after your people. If we look after them, they're going to look after our customers and so on and so forth. And so it's just that people are every part of the business ultimately.
A ripple effect. Let's bring this home, Steve. What is your definition of a real leader?
Well, I think someone who cares, really. It sounds a bit cliche, but I think we really care about what we do. We care about the team in terms of their well-being, and then we care about the impact we're making on the world and how we reduce it in terms of environmental and other damage.
Steve Ardagh, I'm Kevin Edwards, asking you to go out there, care about what you do, and always, folks, keep it real. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Cheers.